Hello, friends. It's time for Talk for Dodge, the show that uncovers the stories behind the houses and the heart of our community. I'm Jeremiahjcondon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin. We are here today with Cole Jaeschke, but before we talk about Cole, let's do an education piece this week.
Education piece. Let's talk a little bit about assessments and appraisal.
Okay.
Because a lot of people say, hey, my house is assessed for $100,000. That's what it's worth. And we always sit back and be like, when you're appraising or trying to come up with a value, that is not the value of your home. That is what you're paying taxes on.
Right.
Right? An assessment is also based on a blanket coverage area. And it's literally a guess, a crapshoot. You have 4 bedrooms, blah, 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 but you're in this area, so that's your assessment.
My favorite answer to that question when somebody says, my house is assessed at $100,000. Is that what it's worth? And I'm like, well, maybe.
Yeah.
There's 50% chance. I mean, there's a chance. But let's actually look in it. Let's walk through your house. Let me pull up some comparables that have sold recently and actually dial in what we think your house will.
Because your house is worth not exactly, but it is worth what other like properties are selling for.
Right.
And that does mean in your area, but if you don't have any in your area, you go slightly outside of your area, but still same town, same area.
And even on some of the small towns. I mean, you look at Calendar. So there's certain towns that are similar to Calendar. So we can kind of use those when that happens. But they're, small towns, let's say there's only 40 houses in that town. So Calendar is 100 houses, whatever. You take another town. I'm not even going to try because Jim Kesterson's going to correct me if I say the wrong one. But you take another town like that and a house is sold similar in that town, and that gives you a pretty good idea of value.
He's like Jim's got to be just like, your in office. Obviously he's an appraiser, but just, hey, any random real estate question in the 50-mile radius area, you're probably like, hey, Jim, he's like everyone else's chat GBT for real estate.
He's got it.
Well, the biggest thing is, I always joke that real estate was easy before COVID. Now it's just everything's difficult. But you talk to Jim and he's like, oh, yeah, it happened in the 80s. This is how we did it. This is how you take care of that. And this is what this is. And you're like, there's that wealth of knowledge of thousands and thousands of closings. And every good, bad, and different situation that may come up has just been, it's that resource. It's right there. Hey, Jim, and here's the answer. This is what I would do. And okay, that's easy.
Yeah. So just know that. And then one interesting fact is the housewarming. The word housewarming actually came from burning the mortgage paperwork after purchasing a home, symbolizing a fresh start of freedom from debt.
So housewarming isn't supposed to start until after you pay the house off?
Correct.
Oh, I have 50-year mortgage. I have a 100-year mortgage.
I've been using the term wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to have a housewarming party. No, I still got, 29 years left of my 30-year mortgage.
29 years, 11 months, and this baby's mine.
Then we're having a housewarming party.
So our guest today is Cole Jaeschke. Cole, can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, Cole Jaeschke. I always joke I'm from the greater Moreland area. So, I grew up just outside of Calendar, actually, but farm family, farm kid, went to Prairie Valley, which is now Southeast Valley. Community. I live in this community now. My wife and I, my wife Chelsea, who's a Dodger graduate, both live in the community. Brought our family and are raising our family back here. So and own a couple different businesses in town. Have some real estate ventures, but primarily a full swing financial planning, which is full service financial planning business.
So you left Fort Dodge, went to college. What drew you back to Fort Dodge? And this was before it was not we've talked about it's getting a little popular to move back home. This was before that. What drew you back?
Yeah, I mean, rural, I feel like rural families, a lot of times you're always kind of, something pulling you back, and I've got the farm agriculture side, where that's obviously not everyone comes back and works on the farm, but when we were looking, Chelsea and I did things a little bit unconventionally. Some of it I'll say is like, hey, we had children a little quicker than we thought we were going to. So it forced us to make some of those probably longer term decisions quicker than we wanted to. But, it's such a blessing in disguise as those events come up in life. And, we lived a little bit in Jefferson for a short period of time and kind of darted back and forth. But I really was looking at where I want to grow my business and have my children go to school, and do everything there, is like we really just found Fort Dodge made the most sense. Chelsea's family's, almost all of her immediate family lives around here, besides for her sister. So made sense for her. They help, it's always with kids. It's always trying to, you can get some free babysitters. It's always great.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, we're the free babysitter now because we're in that next stage of life. We joked before
I'll
this
just
started.
drop them off, Todd.
Yeah, that's fine. Your kids are old enough now, I can almost put up with them.
Yep.
We were joking earlier, you graduated with my son.
Yep.
And it's kind of weird to think about. And you go, you must have started young. And I'm like, yeah, I was 19.
Yep,
So
you know that story then.
when you talked about, started young because you got into it faster than you thought, that it does change how you make decisions. Yep. And how does that tie into picking financial planning as a career?
Yeah, so I tried to play. My first attempted career path was professional football. So I had opportunities or certain looks in the way that process. So I tried to do that for the first probably year of my adult life. So I graduated from college, finished my final football season, immediately kind of went to focusing on that, training, that process, which is quite long to go through that. But as soon as I kind of knew, hey, that was going to be obviously a short window as any athlete that wants to be in life anyway. So the last year and a half of college, I started looking, okay, what is my profession going to be? And I was kind of at a crossroads where I was going to go into the, professional coaching world. So I was going to go down the, collegiate, probably football coach route, which then at that time I would have had to go back to graduate school and do all that. So, I was kind of debating that. And then I also started taking, I graduated early, but I was a redshirt, so I had an extra year basically of school. So I started taking some finance classes, had some professors and stuff that were in the industry at one point. So I started saying, I like numbers. I've always been a spreadsheet, kind of accounting-based brain. That's always the stuff that resonated and was easy for me in school. So I started going down that path, and it's very similar as coaching, as you guys probably find in the real estate world. You're, the people that you represent or help, you're doing a lot of, education, coaching. It's the same thing as me out on the football field, coaching kids or teaching them. So it's that same concept. And, I also knew I was I'm a control freak for those who know me. So I want to control my own schedule. I wanted to have, hey, my earning potential. I was looking at fields like, hey, where, and I believe from day one, and this is a testament to my family, they're all blue-collar entrepreneurs, I would say, of some sorts, farmers, concrete, trucking, and I saw, now, yeah, they work hard, and I was like, well, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'd rather be a white-collar entrepreneur than, I want to shower in the morning at night, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but I was like, that's what I was thinking, like, well, I'd like to do it, because I always sit, and could go a different direction, but that was really where that, I'm like, well, what do I enjoy? And that's, I would say, and it's evolved, for the last decade from then.
Can you, I just have to ask, tell us a little more about the NFL and kind of what that process looks. It just sounds cool, and I think most people don't know this about you.
Yep. So I was in what's called rookie camp. So in the process has changed a little bit since I was in college, and how guys that are coming out of college are in the NFL now. But at the time, let's say the draft was in April, which I think it still is, or right in that time period. So if you're not drafted, and I kind of knew ahead of time, I had NFL scouts telling me, hey, we're interested. We might invite you to camp. We might pick you up as a free agent. We could draft you, right? I knew I wasn't getting drafted, or very unlikely like I was getting drafted. So that was off my radar. But I did think I was going to get signed as a free agent right away. So as soon as the draft is over, all the NFL teams, what they're doing, they, a couple months later, about a month later, they do what's called rookie camp. And this might be different now, so I don't know how it works now. But what that is all the teams bring in all their draft picks, rookies, or sometimes some of the bottom level vets, and they do basically like a couple day simulation of training camp. It's like, hey, they do an install where they install it. So if you're a quarterback, you're running the offense.
And it's for all teams.
Yeah, all teams do this. There's 2 weeks out of the year that they do it. It's right after the draft, sometime after the draft.
So each team does their own.
Yeah, they do their own.
Like, you were with the Panthers, right?
Yep, I was with the Panthers. Now you can go. So I was technically I had like a 3-day contract on how it worked. They brought me out for rookie camp. So you can either get drafted, if you get signed as a free agent, you're going to rookie camp, and then you're also going to go to training camp, unless they cut you in between, which they can. If you're a free agent, you're just signing a temporary contract. They cut you at any time. There's very few people that have the guarantee, all the big contracts you see on TV, they're guaranteed, but 90% of the players, they can get cut at any point in the NFL. So there's a couple weekends where you go through. I was in rookie camp, and I went through that process. I actually had an opportunity to go to a couple different ones. That's kind of the tough part where I was at, is like, one decision, because they get to see you for 3 or 4 days. So, and a lot of times what happens, say there's 50 guys that go in, they might have 10 draft picks, 7 guys they signed as free agents, and they maybe say, hey, we're going to get 5 more that we're going to bring to camp out of this group. And that's how that process works. So I went through, I didn't get picked up at that time. I had multiple individual tryouts after that, and then kind of darted around. I had some opportunities to play at some different levels, some like Arena League, different things. But I kind of got to the point I was like, hey, I'm either going to be NFL, Canadian League, were the two. And now Canada's really grown since I was, it's a lot more, you can make a career. There's the Kyler Fisher from Gowrie, he's actually he's on one of the Canadian. He's starting linebacker. I don't know if a lot of people locally know. It's cool. Yeah, and they play on TV. I mean, they're it's full time. It's kind of big time up there in their areas. They only have like 8 teams, but their season starts before the NFL season. So if in hindsight, I should have probably said, hey, I'll go to Canada, get some experience, and it probably would have created some longevity. And it just got
Warner
some
style.
Yeah, a little more.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. The Barnstormers could be looking.
Yeah,
you're not old enough
funny
yet.
Story. So I don't want to deviate too far for you guys, but the Joe Stacy, who is the voice of the Barnstormers, been there. He's in Upper Iowa, where I went to college, graduate, and he does the Upper Iowa football games as well. So he does all the Barnstormers. He's been affiliated with them for years, but he would always tell the coaching staff, like even 3, 4, 5 years after I was gone, I get messages like midway through the season, say they'd have this guy injured, like, hey, you want to come play a couple games? Like randomly, like Joe, because I know it was always Joe like pushing it, and the coach one time, they had lost like 3 quarterbacks to injury, and I had a teammate that played with me in college. I was playing on, and they called me out, like, dude, I haven't played football for 3 years. I was like, I'm not going out there and blowing my knee out.
Picking the guy out of the stand.
Yeah, it was like $200 in a food voucher. I was like, no, thank you. But
adding numbers is about the same as sacking groceries.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
and now there's been, in that world, a lot of other leagues to develop. There's the spring league. There's a couple that weren't there that, I just, unfortunately, and obviously my path, I'm a believer, things happen for a reason. I went a different path and gone on, but 2 or 3 years later, it would have been a 2 or 3 year process, because there would have been the ability for me to make a little income in other leagues that weren't there at that time.
You make a living at it, you weren't.
Yeah. I just needed enough to get by. I was making nothing, right? I went to school for basically for free, and then I was borrowing money to train. And I'm like, well, I'm going backwards here. This is a bad return on investment at this point.
3-day contracts probably weren't worth a whole
no,
lot
I
of
mean,
money.
no, and it's expensive.
$500.
Yeah, it's expensive. Anyone that's trained professionally, or anyone, even like runners or people that are like treating their body like as a professional athlete, it is very expensive, and you have to do the right things every single day. And if you don't have any income coming in, that's not a good.
It makes it tough.
It's not a good profit and loss there. So
especially traveling and having to stay in certain hotels and
a lot of stuff's on your own dime at that point, right? So once you get to a certain level, you are like, when I was traveling to go to tryouts and stuff, teams pay for that, and they pay for a lot your stay and things. But once you're done, you're leaving, or you got to go somewhere else, like or you're staying or training, you're paying a trainer, you're paying somewhere to train, especially in the Midwest and the winter. You got to find somewhere. It's not super easy. Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Awesome. So let's switch over to the financial side again. You started with Edward Jones.
Yep.
And then opened Full Swing Financial. It's just the entrepreneur in you that's like, I don't want to work for somebody else, or what? How did that come about?
Yep. So, it was. I will say it's just 2 different business models, right? Edward Jones's business model, you're definitely you're more of an employee, and you're considered an employee of them. And as I looked, and I was involved in a couple other partnerships and things. I saw some of the advantages and controls I had in some other businesses that I did not have, my financial services business. And there were some certain decisions, things that I wanted to be able to do differently that I just didn't have a say. And so that was, and that comes back to that control thing. But I will say it was a really good spot to start. Training was phenomenal, a ton of resources, a ton of great advisors. We have a lot of great advisors locally in the area that are Edward Jones advisors, great people, great advisors. I learned a lot from a lot of the Edward Jones people that are still there. Mm-hmm. It's just a difference in model and kind of and I also wanted to be more of a team aspect long term. I thought that's where the sustainability in our business, I think you do need to have others than just, and than just yourself. And Edward Jones is traditional, but they're changing at the moment. But it was one advisor staff, right? Versus there wasn't 2 or 3, 4 advisors. There might be temporarily for a period of time, but if you look at all the offices, they're sole practitioners. So, and I wanted that ability. I wanted a little more camaraderie, similar to how you guys probably function. You function kind of individually, but you do some stuff, together, that same type of process.
And like we talked earlier, having Jim there, or Jeremiah,
yeah.
Hey, I got a question, and that interaction in the hallway, it goes a long way. Just
and you know what the pain each other goes through, right? So when you're in a financial advisor early on, I'm assuming it's probably very similar in your industry, right? It's very hard to get business and get people's trust early on. Once you get it, it feels a lot easier. Everything seems to kind of come a lot more naturally. Yep. But it is hard up front. You're kind of on an island, especially you go through your training period, and then especially in Jones's model, it's your one advisor and it's the support staff. And, you're kind of by yourself, and you're full in charge of your schedule of trying to contact people. Versus if you're around some other people, you can have someone, hey, man, I really feel like crap, Jeremiah. no one's talking to me. No one wants to have me work with them. What am I doing wrong? Right? You miss some of that. And I think that's super important, especially early on. And then now, it's the point where now it's more of like, hey, we're working on the business of like, how can we serve people better? At the beginning, you're just like, who will work with me?
Yeah.
Will anyone work with me, please?
I need 5 big suckers.
Yeah, please, someone work with me, right? That's how
please
it works.
Invest $5.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like everywhere else, family, mom, dad, aunts, uncles.
Yep. You start with who you know, right? And it's always a tough thing, I think. In any sales based, or where you got to have someone that comes to you. You have to be, first be willing to talk to that. It's tough to, everyone likes, especially in the social media phone world, we like to kind of silo out and not have communication, but it's a contact sport, just like your guys' industry.
Well, and right when you get started, mom and dad's money is with George over here that's been doing it for 42 years. So why would they switch it?
Yep.
It's like, George knows what he's doing.
Especially to 21-year-old, like, hey, come work with me. It's difficult. Now I have been always, most people guess that I'm older than I am. So that's always been kind of and I've had that for a very long period of time. So that's always had that on my side, but still, it takes at-bats and it takes experiences. I keep relating. It's very relatable, but I think what you guys do, it's very relatable.
Well, you're working with people.
Yep.
90% of what we do is a relationship.
Yep.
Caring about people and understanding people and listening, which it's hard for a lot of people to do. That's why there's not a lot of us that do it well. So what separates Full Swing Financial from other competitors in Fort Dodge, Central Iowa? Why are you different?
Yeah. I always will tell people you can go and get investments. There's a million places, right, to go buy a stock or, do your retirement account out. But, first and foremost, I think, you're going to get a good team, a team atmosphere. And I think it's super important, but also it's very apparent, we treat every client, whether you got, $50 starting out or you got 10 million, right? We've got everywhere in between in our office. And, that's one of the things we've sat there and worked on process after process, and it's all built on, our customer service model, right? So I always attribute, our success, and whether we're, success is such a relative term because your success looks different to you than it would to me. But we focus purely on the process of serving clients, and that's what you're going to get first. And, we generally, I think you're going to get a genuine conversation whether you work with us or not.
Okay, so we've worked together, and I'm all about service, and I always see the long game. I don't worry about this deal today. And I feel like you're kind of the same way, because I've asked you for advice, and I know that you could give me advice to go one way that you probably make more money now. But I always look at it from a real estate side, like if I sell them this $150,000 house or a $300,000 home, I'm going to make more money on the 300. But if the 150 makes more sense to them, I'll talk them into it.
It's the right thing to do.
That's the right thing. That's where they need to be. That's what they should do. And so I just explain it all. I always let people make up their own mind.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk into it. I'm going to let you make an educated decision.
Yeah, but we're going to explain why this makes more sense. Well, you just recently did that for me. It's like, listen. And so I think that's how you, in any business, you see the long game. Like, I'm in it for the long term, not for
I think around here especially, you have to do the right thing, for people. And and I'll tell people this a lot when, say someone's not a client of mine, they're coming in to meet with us the first time, they're just feeling out. Like, hey, maybe they're meeting with a couple advisors. C is like, you've got to be as much of a fit for us as we are for you, right? It's a two-way street, but you're going to get, there's one thing is integrity. You're going to get that no matter what. Obviously we're always private with people's information, but yeah, sometimes it's not just and that's the one thing. There's so many ways to do it in our industry. There's no right or wrong way. It's really what's important to the client or the individual, right? And a lot of times in those conversations ongoing from the service side, is thinking of is the emotional aspect, right? And that's the toughest thing I think with our industry, or just with what we do on a daily basis, is it is easy to pull up your app and see, judge, if you want to judge us on a number, you can judge us on return every single day, right? Oh, it's up, down, right? And that's the difference. That's why I do always use real estate as an example, or farmland. I would say, and this is that emotional side of what we deal with. And I think that's where people would underestimate the amount of dealing with the emotions, the emotional volatility of people. But I would say that farmer's not selling that land, but it goes up and down in value. He just doesn't get to pull up his app and look what that price is every single day. Versus if you have a stock portfolio, yesterday the NASDAQ was up 2%. So if you owned a bunch of the NASDAQ, you look at me, oh, it was nice. That was green, happy, versus today it's down. You go and look, and some people really struggle with that. And it's trying to separate that, short-term, emotional thought versus that longer lens of things. And that's always a challenge.
And purposely forget my password so I can't check it.
I love the people that are like, I haven't looked at it, because if you think
you reset my password,
sometimes you look in 6-month period, you're like, you were everywhere in between, but you were up 8% or whatever. But it's like, well, if you looked in April, we were down like 18% or something like that in April. If you check that month, you're like, oh man, this sucks. But you wait 3 more months, you're like, I didn't even know April happened, right? So
that's where I'm at right there. So
on top of everything else, you might have 3 clients that are very similar, but they all have completely different needs or ways to get there. And you have to see it. Like for real estate, all 3 of you might be pre-approved for $300,000, but Peter here has got 30% to put down. You want to get a VA and you're going to use some of the government money and blah, blah, blah. And
I need the bedrooms for kids.
Yes.
You need the bedrooms for grandkids.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's like all of a sudden from financing, like you're all in the same book, but financing's totally different for all 3 of you, and it's like you have to shift gears when you go from person to person, because what's good for you is not good for you.
I always think of the paying stuff off, because I'm at that thing where any loan we have is like at 2% interest. I'm like, do I pay it off or do I put the money with somebody? And it's just always that question of how do you, I should pay stuff off, but at the same time, I'm like, it's 2% interest. That's like
we get that a lot. We get that question a lot, right? Of like, well, what do you think is the correct way or not the correct way to do it? And I always say it comes down to the individual, obviously, but it's the discipline the individual has, right? Because we do have a spending problem just in general. Everyone likes material items in the U.S. Like all the consumer data says that, right? It's like, so if you have the discipline to actually invest it, or say, you're like, oh, that $50,000 I got because I got an inheritance or something. Should I put it down on the debt or should I put it in the stock market? But you're like, oh, I'm gonna put it in the market, but then only $35,000 ends up in the market. $15,000 ends up, paying off your credit card because you spent more on your credit card because you thought, oh, I had that money.
Money's sitting there.
Yeah. So there's always that factor, I think, and we'll weigh that in. Obviously, I'm not going to tell someone I'm like, they're not that disciplined with money.
I don't trust you.
Yeah. But you might put, steer them towards a certain direction, just knowing, hey, this is sometimes for that person, it makes sense. Just pay down the debt because you know you didn't waste that money. You at least have that equity value in that property or whatever the debt's backing.
Right. So I got a generational question, because you're millennial, you're borderline, I'm Generation X. Management style and the people in your office all seem to be, I think they're all kind of in that millennial group too. Is there different when you're working with the older generations that you have to remember that, okay, I grew up as a latchkey kid. At 6 years old, I watched myself at home, and and Nate, or 7.
It is. I mean, again, I was just thinking we only have one that's younger than me in the office. So that's always unique when you're leading individuals that are older than you.
Yep.
Right. So but we also have, a lot of females in the office, which that's our industries. There's a lot of male advisors, female, but there's more. Bailey in the office is an advisor, but traditionally that's kind of been if you look at a lot of offices are that way. I think it's ever evolving, in the that's the one thing that I've consistently tried to be, I always wanted to be flexible with my people. And I think that's or people that we've employed, and that's any business. So I've employed people in multiple, not just financial services, other sector. And I've always wanted to be flexible with the caveat, you take advantage of it, then it's gone, right? Then I'm going to be really strict on the other hand. And I think it's so important to, make sure everything's clearly, the hardest part is the upfront communication, right? As long as you set a lot of the boundaries and things up front and are very clear. I'm very direct, so I haven't had a lot of issues. Now I can really irritate some certain people, but everyone in the office knows where I stand, right? They know, and I always tell, it's funny because they communicate differently on, hey, I'm doing this. Some need to tell you everything. Like, oh, I got to leave 15 minutes or something. Some, are not that way. Or they feel like, hey, I just want you to know this. I know you don't need to know. And I always tell them, like, you'll know if I feel like you're pushing the boundary. I promise you. Everyone knows how direct. And I think that's I've tried to always be that way. And I also try to be proactive of, like, sometimes I can come off very, like, hey, I don't want to have a conversation, or I'm, like, really focused. I can dart around and get all, you and I can have that similarity. So I'll be very focused, and some people take that very off, like, oh, he's in bad mood, or he's mad at me, or whatever it is.
No, I just need my 10 minutes to focus on
something. And I think you've got to understand how to adapt to everyone's personality, not only the different generations, but just personality. So we've gone less on the, like, generational stuff and more of, like Enneagram, the colors,
the yellow,
yellow. Yep, the different things there. But my wife, I actually know a ton about the Enneagram, which is, I don't know if you guys ever know that, but it's she worked for Aldi for her first career. She was in management for them, and they did a lot of their management stuff based on, they did a whole weekend where they flew everyone out to Chicago. So she kind of went through that, and we always ask, she's always like, what number do you think they are? And I'm an Enneagram 8, which is very type A, like direct type, all the classic features are there. But that's where I've always tried to, like, either have them do that, so then I kind of know, because I can kind of understand, and I always relate, one of my assistants is very similar to my wife on the Enneagram scale. So I kind of know, I'm like, oh, okay, when she's in a good place, in a bad place, I know how she responds to stuff. And, like, for me, for example, I told them, I disengage when I'm in a bad spot, right? I want to isolate and I won't communicate, right? I'll shut my door. I mean, that's generally when I'm not as in a, something's either going wrong or I'm frustrated or whatever it might be, right? And I've explained that to them, and they kind of know that of, like, okay, I probably shouldn't bug Cole with this really minuscule thing, or they might ask, right? Might ask, and as macho men, we don't always want to talk about what's bothering you or something, but sometimes you just need to have a conversation. All of a sudden, the whole concept changes, or your whole perception of the situation changes.
Yeah, I like that, because I kind of tend to do that too. Yeah, I adjust kind of to who I'm working with, to how I work with them, and that comes from a lot of practice and a lot of, I don't know, my master's is in counseling. I was a counselor at the prison, so that's something you'd go through.
You've seen all kinds of types then.
Yeah, so you have to meet people where they're at, and work with them that way. So that's cool. You figured that out, and you understand.
I don't know if I figured it out. I don't know if I figured it out, but it's
it's something you're aware of.
I do try to engage in that type of activity too. We've had different stuff where we do as a group that you can see. That's like, hey, it just like Leadership for Dodge, when they go through that, and Alexa was she's going through it right now, Alexa in the office. So she was talking to me when they did the colors and went through and some of that stuff. And it's good to see, because you see, like, oh, here's how they, they respond or think about stuff, or and us as, I think, type A salespeople, we're always like, everyone sees it the way we see it, right? That's just how
they better.
Yeah. Or they beat, we beat to our own drum. But in reality, you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can communicate the same thing two different ways. In one way it might irritate someone, the other, they get the same message, but they're not irritated, right?
When we did the colors, he's a yellow, I'm an orange, and I have notes just, like, all over the place, and he's, like, very task oriented, and he looks at my paper and is like, what in the world? And it's like,
I'm very checklist. I'm a checklist person.
Now we get it, because I'm not a checklist person at all. Yep. And he's like, right down the line. That's like, I want my finance person to be yellow.
That's right. I've done that 3 times. And the first time I was blue, because I was a counselor at the prison, and that's kind of the world I lived in, and that's what I did. The second time I was going through grad school, finishing everything up with that. I had just finished my bachelor's, was working on my master's degree, and I came up green because I was spending all my time doing research and going through all that stuff. And this last time I did it, I was an entrepreneur and doing what I do now, and I was very, very orange. So I think the real answer is I was orange the whole time, but I had to adjust my
Your experiences of what you were kind of going through.
around.
Yep.
They were explaining what they were, and us oranges were just sitting there all talking, just everybody talking. And we're
Nobody
over
cared.
talking each other. We're like, no, listen to me, no. And all of a sudden we look over at the blue table, the personality, the people, and they're all showing each other pictures of their family and their dogs. And we looked at each other. It's like, oh, none of us showed pictures or anything. We were just all.
Who are the engineers? Is that the green? Is that the engineers? Yeah, and they're always the ones kind of quiet, like sitting there, like just very
Listening,
proper,
Googling what's going on, so they know more about it.
They're the ones that ask the question after you ask them.
Yeah, they get all the
question.
data. They get all the data first before they start going through. Yeah,
They're the ones you don't want to be at a meeting at that has to be over at 1:00 because they're going to keep asking questions until they figure it out.
Yeah, and then going down that line, there's also the love languages.
Very
which
important.
My wife is very, very.
Chelsea and I went down that path too. So all this kind of applies on your communication style with people. So, I do think that's always a good challenge for anyone that employs people, to go do some exercises like this. Yes. And it doesn't have to be super in depth. Enneagram, you can Google it and go through 50 questions and, get what the numbers are. And you immediately kind of know, and it's very relevant. I very rarely we found someone did it that like changes. The Enneagram's a little more detailed. I think the colors can be a little bit more, and also subject to your environment you're kind of in right now. A lot
more subject to where you're
especially
at,
when we're going through
doing.
Education. I think that's one thing too. And so.
Well, and it was hours and hours.
Yep.
It was a lot of time sitting in front of a computer. So the question everybody always asks, where do you see Full Swing in 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely hopefully expanded our team here, our footprint. We want to at some point expand our office. We're fairly capped out on space, but
you even finished the basement.
Yeah, the basement's finished. Yeah, we're at some point we're looking to expand. Hopefully, we can there's a house that kind of sits on our property or close. We'd like to buy and then eventually add on.
Any good realtors? I'm kidding.
I don't know any of them. No,
I know,
I know, but they're for the listeners. They're kitty corner. I think if I was really feeling, I could probably roll a baseball down the street to them. So I don't know if I could throw it to them.
Can you throw a football that far?
Yeah, I can throw a football I can throw a baseball a lot hard, further just because. But everyone always thought I could throw a baseball real hard, but it's a kind of a different throwing motion. The baseball windup's a lot longer, and your body position a lot different. Versus football is like tight, and so I can throw a football like miles per hour, almost as hard as I can throw a baseball. I feel like my 9-year-old can throw a baseball harder than me. So, but football he would get nowhere near. It's weird, but it's just I throw the baseball just like I throw a football. It's very like tight, compact motion, and that's not baseball.
Lighter, so it doesn't go as far. That's funny.
Tell us a little bit about your education that you're educating people through Full Swing.
Yep,
because you're doing like monthly or semi.
Yes, I mean we have a standard service model that we stick to, and it's more to respect our schedule, but also it forces us to make sure we're constantly communicating with clients, right? And that's a big thing, and the education piece really goes, in the different events that people have in life, and a lot of times when we acquire a new client, there's something that happened, a triggering event. They might be firing an advisor, right? That does happen, but a lot of times it's death, retirement, inheritance, a divorce, diapers, having a child, those type of things. Someone in the mortgage industry said they have the 5 Ds. I don't know what they are, but they're like divorce, diapers, death.
We just went through it: death, divorce, and disaster.
Yeah.
3 Ds.
Yeah. So, but those are the times where those things, and we're generally, tailoring the education around that event. And a lot of it's, tax education. Here's the tax implications. Here's the type. Here's what's going on. This is someone that's already has assets accumulated, right? We kind of have the people that are, already accumulated. They just need help managing the things, whether it's, the tax implications or, hey, where's my income going to come from or whatever I want to do. And the other side is the person that has nothing. They just want to get started. They want to do a budget. They want to do those. We do both. Majority of our clients, have assets with, we are a for-profit business. So the people that have the money generally, are ones that we more serve. But again, we've really focused on education too for, the top end clients. They have children, they have kids that need help. And we really serve both sides of the mix. But there's all ranges of things that we really do cover. But yeah, it's a constant I feel like that's what we're doing all the time is educating or more informing, right? Like, hey, here are your options. You have options, and then it's just kind of, what's most important to them. And that's one thing that, really a lot of our conversations sometimes we'll meet, and it's more of just like, what do you got going on? What's keeping you up at night? What are the things that you're looking forward to? Or someone that's got the money and they're like, well, yeah, you can grow it more. But what do you want to do? What's important to you? Do you want to leave money somewhere?
How do you want to spend it?
Yeah. What's it look like? What's it look like when you die? Do you want to leave money to a foundation or to your children or taxes, whatever it might be, right? And it's just having those, knowing what questions to ask, and then, kind of backing through. But sometimes it's hard to get people to kind of peel back that onion and really go. But the more, I've done it and seen it, the better questioning, I think, that ultimately matters. And it really gets people down to, what they're wanting to accomplish on the back end.
Well, I think it's wonderful. We're talking about Talk Fort Dodge and things that make our city better. And when you have like quarterly, something like the last one was at Social Security.
Yep.
But yeah, people show up and just listen to Social Security. I mean, that's good. It's educating people.
Yeah, you're talking about
finances.
I'm sorry I didn't bring that up. But yeah, we had a social, we normally do 1 or 2 events a year that are purely educational. Generally the most popular ones are Social Security and Medicare, just because changes, it's relevant to most people. There's always a new age of 65 coming for Medicare, or new people that are reaching age 62 and up for Social Security. But yeah, I think we had a couple weeks. It was in the beginning of October. We had like 90 people in the room. We had a person that we do from Allianz, a company that we do some business with, came as a specialist on that, spoke, very relatable, did that. And that was awesome. It was about half clients, and there was quite a few people that were not clients. And we opened it up to the public, and we do that every year, some variation of that. Sometimes if there's like a new tax bill or something that comes out, we might tailor it to, hey, here's the, how you should think about your retirement plan based on the implications of, legislation.
Yeah,
that's passed.
I think that's great.
Awesome. So kind of to finish up, I got a couple things. One is, what's the biggest financial myth that you'd like to bust for people listening in our area? What do you hear the most where you're like, that's just not right?
Oh, I don't know. I would say there's probably a better answer than this, but the first thing that came to mind is, I was thinking like relating it to working with us, is people feel like they have to have like a lot of money to work with a financial advisor, right? And I don't think that's the case, because again, a lot of it's what we do is education. And then the other thing is, there's some perception again that they can start later, right? I think that's I don't want to say the myth, but it's a lot of younger people back, well, I'm going to make more money later, so I'll save later, right? Or they're not doing some of the just very, very small things. It's like $25 a week, things there. And I don't want to say it's a myth, but that's like, we have some of that where they just rather, buy more Starbucks or do those things when it's like, hey, $25, it's pretty easy.
You make a really good point. Like a lot of young people that maybe only have $100 a month extra that are willing to give it away. That's only $12,000 or $1,200.
Yep.
That doesn't seem like a lot. But for them, if it was put in the right place, it would accumulate. And for you, if they come into you right now at the age of 22, when they're 32, all of a sudden that starts building up.
I had an 18-year-old yesterday with her mom. She's not going to college, but she's making $30,000-$40,000 a year, and she just set up 2 accounts. She's doing a weekly contribution. She had some money saved up. That's all she's doing, systematic weekly. And I'm like, you can do this and be a millionaire, not make $200,000-$300,000 a year. You might never make over 6 figures, and I didn't tell her this or say that, but she might not. But if she does that till 50, 60, you look at the numbers, she's not doing anything real complex, but if she stays consistent with that, you can have $1 million. I mean, it's not that hard to save $1 million if you have time.
That's awesome.
You got to have time though. That's the thing, is most people try to say, hey, I can save more later. And really the more important thing is the time value of how long you have the money in the market or, invest it or whatever you're doing with it.
All right. Final question. What was your favorite Christmas present growing up? Because Christmas right around the corner. So what was your best gift ever?
Good question. I always come back. I'm a farm kid. So one year there was and you guys maybe know the individual. I can't remember his name, but one year my mom had, we all used to have the little farm sets. Like the toy farm, like that's all we had as toys growing up. It was either that or I went through like a G.I. Joe, like the army figures. I went through that. That was it. That was all I had One year, my mom got barns made, like custom wood barns. There was a guy in Callender. He used to have a wood shop. It was right by the railroad tracks. I remember right where it was.
Grandpa Taggart worked there.
He had
Grandpa Clifford worked with him all the time building those.
Yeah.
barns.
So your favorite gift was a dollhouse.
It was like a
to go with his GI Joe dolls.
a scaled barn. But yeah, I used to we had we lived in the farm on a farmhouse outside of Farnhamville when I was pretty little, and the whole attic was just like an old wood attic. Wood flat floor, and it was all just our farm setups.
Oh,
we had
cool.
like marker.
Really
We
cool.
drew like permanent marker for roads, and we big cattle lots, and that was like my brothers and my two brothers that I was with always growing up. We all had our own little farm set. So he had his farm was over here, mine was over here. You know, mine was very
beans, one has farm.
Mine was always very orderly too. I was always one. I never liked. I always it was just like doing I like my kids and my older boys into Legos. I really enjoy putting it's that like orderliness of it. And the same thing with the farm. Like I loved set. I never played with it, but I just would rearrange it and oh, this is cool. This is, and set it up and that was it. And then I would just leave it. I'm like, well, what do we do now? We don't really play.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
I literally just got mad last week at my son bringing out the Legos and this instruction book. I'm like, why is there an instruction book for Legos? You're supposed to figure it out yourself.
It's an odd thing that for all the toys and junk that we have, like Kale, my older boy Kale and I, we'll do all kinds of Legos always. Now he's getting to the point now where he doesn't need my help anymore though now, so it's kind of sad.
It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, and then the younger one, he wants me to build it, but then he just breaks it.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Yeah,
I'm like, the older
younger
one,
child.
he's all orderly and does it all, gets it done, and then the younger one comes and tries to break it. So
Destroy.
We had a Christmas years ago. We lived in Otho, and Jordan and Katie were little, but we got Jordan the Connects roller coaster and the Connects Ferris wheel. And I had taken the 10 days off between Christmas and New Year's. I had enough seniority to finally do it at the prison. And we spent 10 days filling the living room. And then I found an old motor so it would all run everything over and over again. And him and I built this whole thing in the living room for a week. It was so much fun.
that's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today. This has been a lot of fun, and time flies.
Yeah, so much fun. Thank you guys both, and love the podcast and love you guys sharing the message about Fort Dodge.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank
right
you.
back at you. Thank you.
That's a wrap at today's episode of Talk Fort Dodge.
Stay connected with us on social media and join us next time as we continue exploring Fort Dodge's stories through the lens of two lifelong Dodgers. I'm Jeremiahjcondon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin, and this is Talk Fort Dodge.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital. Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market. Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarket.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarket.com. That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026. Or visit our website at www.spinmarket.com.